Right, 5 minutes in the shed. It's New Year's Day, so not much progress today due to a pint of Bailey's as a nightcap last night. So I thought I'd give you a quick update where I am. I've done a few bits and bobs on the bike, got everything ready to send to the powder coaters. Just little niggly little bits and bobs, so I didn't bother filming those, but I'll give you a quick update now and show you all the parts. Right, so these are all the parts that I'm going to be sending to the powder coaters. Got the frame, swinging arm, brake lever, side stand, foot pegs, that sort of thing. I'll just show you how I've got everything ready for powder coat. So, where the wheel spindle goes in here, I didn't want to have to drill those out afterwards, so I've got some sacrificial bolts and some washers, and I've kind of masked those off so I don't have to clean the powder coat out of those holes. Then we've got the swinging arm pivot end, put some M10 all thread through there and some big washers on, actually the perfect size actually for that tube. So that's blanked that off. I found out why the swinging arm pivot was very dry and a bit rusty. That's because if you look there should be a grease nipple, and there is no grease nipple, there is the other side. So I've ordered some grease nipples, they're cheap as chips. So I'm going to stick one in there for when it's powder coated. Obviously that'll ruin both of these grease nipples, but then I'll put 2 new ones in afterwards. Brake arm, I've masked that off on the inside there, so the brake arm pivot doesn't get full of powder coat. Again, you can drill it out afterwards, but it just saves a bit of time. So I've just put a bit of sacrificial all thread and a couple of nuts and washers on that. That's the bit that holds on the side panels, side stand, foot pegs. This is a well, actually it's the brake torsion arm for the back brake, but then it's got all this business on the bottom, which is a bit sort of motocrossy, and the chain runs in there so the chain doesn't flap around too much when you're motocrossing. I mean, the welding is pretty appalling actually, but this is kind of BSA standard, so I don't think I'll change it. I don't know. I'll see when I come to put it back on. Battery tray there, just needs painting, and rear grab handle luggage rack there. So on the frame, there's 2 tubes that go through the oil in frame tank for where this hanger hangs on there. So I've put a bit of M6 all thread through there and a couple of nuts on, just so that doesn't get filled full of paint. The dipstick hole for the tank is exactly the same as a rocker inspection cap. I had an old one in the drawer, so I put a new fibre washer on it. I've screwed that on nice and tight to keep everything out of the oil tank. There's a self-tapping screw plugging up the breather hole. I've put some all thread through the headstock with some big washers on. I'll show you underneath, so we won't get any blasting media or paint in there. I've plugged up the end of the fit oil hole there with some old pipe and old Jubilee clips. They're sacrificial. A couple of old screws in those holes there, so I don't have to tap them out afterwards. And then if you look, I don't know if you can see just under there, I've put a piece of old hose on the oil return line there as well to keep that clean and keep all the blasting media out of there. So that's everything ready for the powder coaters. When I took the swinging arm out, I did take the bearings out of the swinging arm because I wanted to make sure that they didn't get damaged or full of shot blast media. So they are here. So this is a swinging arm pivot, a couple of washers on the end of it. They go on the end there. Next thing along is these. These are the pivots themselves. So this pivots, these go in the frame. Over the top of that and then that's what pivots on these needle rollers. So these needle roller bearings here pivot kind of on there. Now either side of that you have a grease seal, so one goes this side and one the other side. Now the ones on the inside, I was trying to drift the bearings out and they got absolutely mullered, unfortunately, so I need some new ones of those. The needle rollers themselves have took a bit of a kicking as I've knocked them out. I'm not entirely sure how good they're going to be now because I've hit them so hard. So I think I'll put a new pair of those in. Then you have this tube in the middle here, which spaces the two out. So I'll replace the bearings, I'll replace the oil seals, and get the new grease nipples in it, and it should be pretty good. So that's a swinging arm. What else have I taken out? Swinging arm. Forks. I took the forks out. So if we come over here, here's the forks, all stripped down. I don't know if you've seen the earlier videos, but I mentioned the forks may be bent. Now, I've taken them all apart and I've done a bit of testing to see if they're bent, and I thought the stanchions were bent, and they're not, unfortunately, because they are nice and straight. However, they are pitted, and when the chrome's pitted on the stanchions, as they slide in and out of the fork seals, they rip the fork seals. So I might need to either get the stanchions re-chromed or get some new stanchions. I'll show you how the stanchions are not level, but I'll have to reset up my camera. Right, so the forks. Now what I've done is I tried the forks in the yokes properly, and they did indeed seem to be a little bit twisted. Now I wanted to rule out whether it was the top yoke or the bottom yoke that was twisted. Now the top yoke isn't straight, these are tapers in that end where the top of the fork leg sits in and then the top nuts go on. Bit tricky to check tapers, so I thought I'd check the bottom one first. So bottom yoke's here, and what I've done, this is the top of the fork legs, so I'm right on the bottom of the chrome fork stanchions, and I've clamped them in to the yoke there. Now what I've done is I've clamped the top tube in between some wood there to protect it, and I've tried to level them up. There's probably a better way of doing this. I don't know what it is. So this was my method. So I put this in the vise, and I've got the yoke end perfectly level to my bubble there. I can check it on the yoke itself as well, and that's level as well. Right, so that's perfectly level there. I've also leveled it this way, so if I go on this leg, that there is bang on the bubble. So we know that this is dead level and this is dead level, so hopefully this one will be dead level as well. However, when we put that on there, the bubble is slightly towards this end, which would suggest it's raised up that way. Now we can double check it by putting the level there. That's bang on level, and then if I bring the level here, the bubble's over this side, which would suggest again that it's up that way. So I double checked it actually. I put one bubble there, and then I put another bubble here. That one's in the middle, this one's still off to that side. So that shows me it's not moving while I'm trying it. That is actually the case. So that then means that as the yoke goes this way, this hole and this hole is tilted that way. So the whole yoke is twisted like this. Now it's only a tiny bit, but the problem is if you have a tiny angle there, when you put on a long fork leg, it turns into quite a lot of distance at the other end. Now, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that, whether I need to change the yoke or whether you can straighten yokes. I'll have to have a think about that. So so yeah, that's the update of where I am at the minute. So bottom yoke is twisted, not the forks, but I need to replace the forks or get these re-chromed anyway because of the pitting. So yeah, I'm just trying to get all this stuff ready for when the frame comes back from the powder coaters. So that's where we are, 5 minutes in the shed.